Trigger warning. Please be advised that Locked and Loaded Diaries talks about themes of suicide, homicide, sexual assault, and other wrongful deaths. Kimberly Walker will be on indefinite hiatus, but Locked and Loaded Diaries will continue with Heather Hedge-Baker and Terry Caserta. Enjoy. I'm willing to bet that you think most military deaths happen in the combat zone. Think again. Nearly 3/4 of all active duty U.S. military deaths between 2006 and 2020 occurred not in the war theater of Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan, but in places of no conflict. And of that 74%, 93% of deaths happened here on U.S. soil. My name is Kimberly Walker, and I'm an Army combat veteran. These statistics sent me on a goose chase about what was happening in the military and how did these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines actually die? What did the military know about these deaths, and what were they telling these Gold Star families? Well, I went straight to the source. They have done all the legwork. Please join me and my battle buddies and Gold Star mothers, Terry Caserta and Heather Hedge-Baker, where on every episode we will talk to a Gold Star family member and find out what happened to their service member versus what the military told them, and the justice that they've never received. Are you ready? Well, we are. Welcome to Locked and Loaded Diaries.
Hello, Locked and Loaded Diaries listeners. I'm Heather Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, Terry Caserta. We have a very special show for you. We're here serving it up hot and fresh as we talk about the state and well-being of our nation. And as I always like to say, the way we treat our service members is a direct barometer for the state and well-being of our nation. Every day, our service members face an invisible enemy. Yet more and more of our children are being recruited under the guise of free college, free medical, or they're signing up because of the iconic and stoic nature of the military, or movies like Top Gun. Our kids are being bamboozled by promises, leading the very fabric of America to the slaughter.
I couldn't agree with you more, Heather. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Like Heather said, we are here with two very special guests, active duty Navy sailor Christian Dermyer. He is here to tell his personal story with the support of his mother, Terry. Christian has been in the Navy for nearly 4 years and has decided to come forward with the treatment he has experienced firsthand as a sailor. He is a corpsman and a lab technician stationed in Annapolis, Maryland. Christian and Terry, thank you for talking with us today. We are so proud of you for coming forward to let our listeners know about the treatment some of our service members endure while they're serving. With that, I will turn it over to one or both of you.
Okie dokie. Let's see where to start. So I joined the Navy in 2018, but just before graduating high school. Basically, I came from a small town, so my options coming out of high school weren't looking very good in my eyes. I saw I could go one of three routes. I could either try the college thing, go into a bunch of debt. I could go work in a factory like my father did and his father and just continue the same cycle. Or I could join the military and see if it works out, or at the very worst, get out and go to college afterward. So I chose the military because at the time seemed like the best option. So I joined with the idea. So I joined as a corpsman. So I went to boot camp in 2018 and graduated, and I went to corpsman A school. About 3/4 of the way through A school, I got designated to go to a specialty C school to become a laboratory technologist. Basically, this C school, it's a year-long school, and it's the curriculum is really arduous. It's basically condensing about 2 years of college, which is what a lab technician in the civilian world would do, into a year. So 6 months of your at regular like class experience and 6 months clinical. Of course, we started with about 22 people. Out of the 22 people in my original class, only 9 people graduated in my total class, and out of those 9, only 4 were a part of the original class. The other 5 were from the class previous to us that were rolled back. About 3/4 of the way through my second phase, that was when the coronavirus pandemic really hit. It was my first week working in microbiology. Basically, it just threw a wrench into everything. The military really was completely unprepared for it. They were bringing in new instruments into the hospitals. Everyone was running around with like a chicken with their head cut off and stuff. And if you worked in certain technical fields, especially like laboratory medicine, you were just working overtime and stuff because it was all about the mission. And that works when you have enough people and stuff. But the problem is like I said before about the schooling's not an easy school to go through. And even people who necessarily get picked up for it don't necessarily want to be there. A lot of people will purposely fail out. So it's a job there. I think there's only like a couple thousand in the Navy at all. And then you spread that across, a couple hundred duty stations and stuff, because if you think about it, anywhere that has a clinic or a hospital with any sort of laboratory capabilities, they're going to need some form of a lab technician. So you're spread really thin, as it is even in like the hospital setting. So I was, after I finished my school, I was then given orders to go to report to Annapolis, Maryland at the United States Naval Academy. When I got there, I was still a fresh technician. I really did not know what it meant yet to be a lab tech. There's a lot of things that, like just with any career field, they can teach you all you want in school. However, you're never going to be fully prepared on your first day, kind of thing. And so I get to my duty station, and I find out of the people there there's 8 billets. However, there's only 3 other lab techs there at the time. And one was going to be PCSing soon. One I went to school with in lab school. And another was going to be getting kicked out of the military soon because they were reaching their what we call higher tenure, which basically means they weren't able to advance in a timely manner. So the military was not going to retain them. So before I got here, it was just 2 lab techs that were constantly rotating back and forth the schedule. And now our clinic is a 7-day clinic. We have what we call duty on the weekends, but really what it is it's a sick call. During the summertime, we have what's called a PEP sick call, which it includes basically a full clinic day from 7 to the last company's supposed to show till 12:30, but that can run all the way up to 1500. So at 3 o'clock, you might as well call it a full working day. And then the Sunday would be a 7 to 9 sick call hours. These two were rotating back and forth for months on end, just the two of them between these duties. So they were working half the time. And then when they left, for quite some time, it was just me and my coworker rotating back and forth between duty for, I want to say, about 6 months or so. Which that makes it really hard. You get 4 days off a month and stuff. And even though I realized, it's like, it's only like 2 hours, you still have to get up, go to work. You have to make sure everything's done. And there's circumstances which you're not going to be able to go home right away and stuff. We're constantly getting bombarded with COVID specimens. We didn't have the staffing. We didn't have the tools. It's just, it was the whole thing with COVID just made things like it compounded and made it 10 times worse as a lab technician and stuff. We were running, when I first got here, we were having to run samples to Walter Reed for, once a week. We would do 800 people in a day, at least once a week. And like that adds up. You got, at most 4 people working on this, for 800, you're 800 to 4, not very good numbers. To be working on it. So
back up just a minute, Christian, because explain one thing out too is you are at the clinic, but also over at the academy, they have their own separate little clinic too, right? So it's like,
yeah. So here there's 2 different, we call them UX, and basically it's special identifier codes for orders. You have the North Severn Clinic, which is on the north side of the Severn River, and then you have what's called Brigade Medical Unit, which is actually in the academy. So when I'm saying that it's been 2 to 3 people for a clinic, it's more like it's been 2 to 3 people for 2, because it's a sister clinic. It's a clinic underneath us. However, the bulk of our patients, and the reason why our clinic exists on the North Severn side, exists because of Brigade Medical. And they send us specimens 2 to 3 times a day, and it's from the midshipmen. So it's all, if they get sick, if they are going to go on a deployment, if they're going to travel, if they're going to go home on leave or anything like that, all that stuff, all that processing, it goes through us.
It sounds like you're wearing down.
Yeah. It's very long hours. When I first got here, I think for the first 2 or 3 months, because of me still learning my job. Luckily now I've gotten my job down a bit more, but I didn't leave work a day before 5 p.m. and stuff for the first 3 or 4 months. And it's just been continuous. We'll have times where it lightens up a bit. That's usually during the winter time when the midshipmen go on their leave and stuff, because then you basically just alleviated half the patient load, because you no longer have those patients there. But right
in the time frame too is when you were called in and raked over the coals by your command too, and called several different names. And
yeah, so when I first checked on board, I was having some issues trying to adjust, and I was having problems with one of my chiefs, and he didn't like me. Why, I'm not 100% sure. I've been told different things. Someone before I got here said something about me, and rumors in the Navy fly like wildfire as soon as it hits the chief's mess, or the I forget what they call it for the officers, but it's basically the same thing for the officers. And it's gossip. So if you have, it could be one person from your previous command say something about you, and they don't even know you, but they say to someone up here before you get here, everyone here is going to have already an opinion about you before you even walk into the door. And instead of judging the person upon when they come here, and it's just ridiculous. So when I came to the command, I was already SOL because someone says something about me. I don't know who they said it to. But it's what I've been told by fellow technicians, and I have no reason not to believe them. So I was constantly berated and scrutinized for every single little thing I was doing, because, not saying it's okay to always make mistakes, but when you're fresh out of a schooling environment and you're just learning the job and you're getting tossed to work independently by yourself, especially when it comes to something like this where it literally has to deal with like people's lives and stuff, and you making mistakes, not necessarily like, it's very frustrating because you don't necessarily know what you're doing wrong. However, you're getting just raked over. It's just frustrating.
Do they explain what you did wrong? If you do something, do they take the time to tell you why it was wrong or what you did wrong?
It really, it depended on the person. Some would, some wouldn't. They would do, a lot of times, me and my co-worker, because we were both basically learning at around the same time, we get what are called counseling chits, and basically an NCO takes you into their office. They basically start, it feels like an interrogation. It's like, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, don't do this again. Sign this piece of paper, and they file it away, and it's like it's a mark against you and stuff until that person either decides to get rid of it, or they decide to send it up if you get multiple ones and stuff. So it's like they don't hold a lot of weight, but it's still like when you're constantly getting them, it's just it's like, why? Well, like, what's the sense of this? If obviously this is showing I have some issues that I don't understand something, I need help to understand what it is, especially if it's different things each time.
May I ask how many you have gotten? And you don't have to answer.
I think I got around 4 or 5. A lot of them were when I first started to work independently. So I don't want to say it was little stuff that I missed, but it was stuff that if you haven't been doing this for a while, you would miss it. So it was like putting in like a comment for like certain results and stuff. There's like a certain like verbiage you have to use. I might forget to to put like a certain thing to say like a readback was performed, or I would forget like we have sample racks of specimens that were run for the day that are out. I may accidentally have forgotten to like put one into one of our refrigerators or something like that, just because it was like out of the way and it was somewhere I didn't see it. It was mostly things like that. It wasn't ever really like, it wasn't like I put this patient in harm because XYZ. It was more like you failed this administrative task that, you know, you were just taught how to do in like 30 seconds, and no one really paid attention to like actually training you how to do this
And
kind of thing.
and you got these chits for that. And they couldn't have just said, hey, this is what you forgot. Next time you need to make sure you need to add that. But they wrote you up.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. I just wanted to clear that up for our
What
listeners.
scrutiny?
I know,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Unbelievable.
It's not normal. That's not real world.
yeah, it you know, our
Understand the
job,
military, but how do you expect people to learn?
Exactly.
We don't teach them.
like our job's very clerical in nature, but it's if when you have someone that's like fresh out of schooling, there's a different mindset between a seasoned technician and a brand new technician fresh out of school. And
Just like you mentioned earlier, that you learn when you get to that job. I mean, we all know that. I mean, we've all been through that. I mean, I'm a teacher, and I had to learn a significant amount when I finally had my own classroom, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And keep in mind, on top of them learning this stuff, they're short-staffed where they don't even have the extra help there to be able to help them to even compensate for those mistakes either, because you're talking 2 people doing the job of 8.
And they're all new too.
Yeah.
So one couldn't help the other because they were probably making the same mistakes and didn't realize it. So
well, not to mention I mean, like with all of those people that you're serving, some of your results might have been skewed from different things, just from being new at the job, you know. I mean, I have to. Can I take just a second here and give you guys a little bit of a statistic here from the GAO? They say, and this is recent congressional research, they say that their preliminary observations for monitoring whether or not somebody on the military base is accredited. That means that they're certified to be a doctor or nurse or maybe what you do. 1 in 6, out of every 6. That's just the preliminary findings. So when you're sitting across the table from me and you're telling me how overworked you were and that they just threw you into the job, the whole time I'm reading 1 in 6, I'm thinking about how they, you know, how long it takes for a physician in the civilian world to become accredited, you know. Yeah. And here they are just throwing you guys in. Go ahead, continue. This is interesting.
it is very.
Yep. So actually, military medicine is really weird in that aspect with the Navy. So we have people who like actually like practice medicine on like the level of like PAs who have no actual like real formal degree. They're called IDCs, Independent Duty Corpsmen. It's a specialty school, and they practice underneath doctors. They practice medicine. They can prescribe people stuff. They can diagnose people. And these people, they don't have actual, like they're not PAs. They're not doctors. They're not nurse practitioners.
They don't have a medical degree.
You said they're IDC?
Yep, Independent Duty.
Independent Duty what?
Corpsmen.
Corpsmen. Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that they're bad, but however, you know, as like, let's see, you know, you see a provider as like, you know, you have an expectation. They do go through an education process. However, it's not like your classical, like, you know, a PA goes to school for 6 years, a doctor goes to school for 8 years and stuff and has all this experience.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I don't want to get into my son's case necessarily, but I think about the fact that he was throwing up and water, and the nurse told him, or whoever the nurse was, right, at the time, nurse, hey, don't drink any water. Tells him not to drink any water, and then he throws up. He doesn't listen. He throws up the water, and then they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Past that, they send him home like he has a migraine or something. So
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like these people are very well educated, thoroughly educated on the different parameters of their job, which seriously can be almost anything, because you're talking about somebody's health.
Yep.
But you have to have a personal desire to continue to study, I would think.
Yeah, and like some of the stuff that we'll see is just dangerous, that like they'll pull. We had I still remember a case. I can't go too much into details. However, I can give the broad general gist of what happened. We had a provider who did not want to listen to the laboratory. We so as part of our laboratory policy to call in critical results, and basically critical results are any result that we've defined as could be possibly life-threatening. So for this particular patient, we had done a complete blood count on them, and their hemoglobin was at a critical low, which hemoglobin, is measuring like your oxygen saturation in your blood. This person was sitting at a 4. Now, to put that in perspective, anything below an 8 is when they're considering transfusion therapy for someone. This person was sitting at half that. It's not like
Wow.
A normal person sits at probably about 12 to 16 or so. And this doctor, we call him the result, and the doctor's first question was, "How did you do this?" Blah blah blah. And we're like, "Sir, we used our analyzer that we've used on thousands of patients that we QC daily and maintenance and everything, and it's completely accredited." And well, he's like, "Well, when I was at XYZ, we did it this way, so that must not be right." So he proceeds from this already severely non-perfused patient to draw more blood from them. Now, keep in mind, this is over at the academy side, at the academy. So there's about a 30 to 40 minute delay in shipping specimens. They draw another set of blood from her to bring over to our clinic for us to run again. They still don't believe us, and they do it a third time. After the third time of us calling in this critical result, they finally, now keep in mind, at this point, it had been about 8 hours they've been sitting on this person. They finally decide to send this person to the local hospital. Like, I know it's, as a lab technician, that is not my call to make. I understand it's the providers. However, I can look at that as a lab technician and say, sitting on someone with a hemoglobin of 4
Yeah.
in a clinic, an outpatient clinic, is dangerous.
For 8 hours.
Yeah. Just to have them sitting in some exam room, or, well, I don't even know if they were necessarily in an exam room. They could have sent them back to class and just told them to come back in a couple hours.
Clear negligence and medical malpractice. You're having to watch this and be participant of it in a way, and then all the while it sounds like you're being mistreated yourself.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us more about that?
You're just gonna say that?
Yeah, it's just like we constantly have to. We are arguing with the providers on how these tests are run, how they're ordered, how we process our stuff. It's very frustrating. Like we just ran through. Every year we have what's called I Day, or induction day, for the new class of midshipmen plebes. So this year it was a mess. It's always a mess every year, but this year was really bad because we had people overstepping the my laboratory department. It's not on my lab why there's so many problems. So to start, it's a joint operation between us, Walter Reed, and Fort Belvoir, and be the Center for Disease Detection, and the epidemiology lab in Wright-Patterson, Ohio. We spent months preparing for this, and I wasn't even sure. So I'm the supply petty officer for my laboratory. With everything that's going on as far as like the global scheme of things, I wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to supply this mass evolution, because this is 1,200 people that we're having to do on basic military induction labs, which is a whole set of things. It's like HIV, MMRVs, vitamin D, hepatitis panels, ABORH, DNA, sickle cell, G6PD. We're drawing like 9 tubes on these people of blood. So it's not like it's just a couple of tests for these 1,200 people. It's
an extensive test.
Yeah, and even to put this in more perspective, in places that do this on like the daily, like MCRD or Great Lakes, or even like Fort Benning and stuff like that, they see maybe at most like two to four divisions a day, which is roughly equates to about 400 people for these same labs. They're expecting us to do 1,200 in 2 days with a staff of 4 people that are actually the lab techs that are processing it and stuff. But their idea behind it is, well, if we have a bunch of people who are phlebotomists doing it, it's not going to be a problem. Well, we ran into a supply issue. I warned them 6 months before, and it wasn't just me, it was also some of my leadership too, that there's a shortage on plastics because of everything going on with Russia and Ukraine, and all the embargoes with oil. It's hard to get plastics in. Well, the plastics are needed to make the tubes that we use. So I warned them way out. I was like, this is going to be a struggle for us. So we were like resorting to like having to like get other tubes, wheel and deal with other clinics and hospitals in order to get stuff in, to make sure that we had enough of a stockpile and that we also had enough to take care of our regular patient load for this. And then we had to us lab techs and our phlebotomists that are like our regular phlebotomists, we had to go through and we had to order all the tests for every single one of these patients. But we were only given maybe about a week or so to do this, because we couldn't get a straight answer from the academy for a roster of people who are registered into the medical system. And even so, there's still a whole bunch of people that weren't registered properly, and day of, we had people that were coming that weren't registered at all. So that just tells me the United States Naval Academy does not know who's coming for the first day of school there. Like, they are, I don't know what it is. I don't know these people.
Even possible.
Exactly.
And how is that even possible?
And that's what I'm trying to say, because I know, there's a whole interview process. You have to get letters and stuff. To get into these service academies is not easy. It's not an accident. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you wake up and you're like, oh, I want to go to DeVry University, and you just enroll. It's a process to get in. So how do we have people come in the first day and they're not registered in our system and stuff? And I'm not talking about like onesies, twosies. I'm talking about like hundreds.
Right.
And it's just very problematic for us, because that's more tests we have to order on the back end of things while we're trying to process everything. We're trying to keep our stuff organized. we're trying to work with other laboratories because we don't run all of these tests, to be able to
And
ship
there's
them.
they have plenty enough budget money to make sure that all these bases are covered.
Right.
Yep. And that's
Keep in mind,
the thing too. Go ahead, Mom.
is at some of the other clinics are well overstaffed in other areas. Some of them that only need, what is it, Christian, like 6, have like 8 or 10.
Yeah.
So they're way overstaffed, but they won't send those people to where they're needed
Of course,
and
not.
everything.
That would be too
So,
easy.
right, and everything. I mean, and now keep in mind when he's talking about their other patients, we're talking retirees, we're talking basically civilians that are coming in there as well. It's just not all active duty. Actually, active duty, like Christian himself, has a hard time getting into that clinic to be seen for himself. So if he's sick or anything else, it's a fight for him to even get in to be seen, because they really don't have anything set up for active duty. It's for the retirees and that part are the midshipmen. But the ones that are actually working there have to fight to get in and get appointments for themselves. Just like for his mental health, he's had to fight to get appointments in to get his mental health.
Yep.
So
Wow.
is in this scenario, what do you consider the abuse to be?
It's just the understaffing and the overworking, and they don't give us adequate resources in order to accomplish our jobs. And just like my mom was saying, it's hard to get seen in this clinic as an active duty person. There's no sick call for active duty people. We have to like literally turn people away who are coming in trying to see a doctor on short notice because like they're running a PRT and they busted their ankle or something. Something that's anywhere else I've been was never a problem.
You just said some magic words for me. I just have to stop you and say, because they turned my son away the very first time he went to the Womack Army Medical Center. And it's stated in the CID investigation by 2 of the upper leadership. And then, at the end of this whole thing, when they do the final review, they basically come out and say he only went to the ER 2 times. They completely omit and say that would never happen. But they really do turn people away.
So, Christian, when you have to turn them away and they're active duty, where do they go? Do you know?
So we try to offer them as best of recommendations that we can. If it's something that isn't super urgent, like if it's like a rolled ankle or something, something simple like that, we'll tell them, go to we have like Patient First here, which is like an urgent care center, or we tell them if it's something serious to go to Anne Arundel Medical Center, the closest ER. But it's not like we're arranging, for them to go there. Now, if someone's like collapsed on the floor, that is different. They will call someone. But, these are people coming in looking for medical attention. As an active duty service member, we should not have to go out into the system and, try to go get seen at a public hospital. And had to go back through, claim it through TRICARE and everything, go through all that processing. It shouldn't be like that. You should be able to walk in and say, hey, I'm in trouble, I'm not feeling good, or whatever may the issue be and stuff. And you can't do that here. But if you are a midshipman, it's a different story. Midshipmen have a sick call. Midshipmen can walk down to Brigade Medical Unit anytime and stuff and say XYZ, and they're going to get seen.
And explain what a midshipman is for those who don't know.
So a midshipman is someone that is a part of the cadet corps at the Naval Academy. They're the students there. They're going to be future officers. So they give them privileges that, you know, enlisted people don't have. And like, my opinion is healthcare is a basic privilege and is something that should be easily accessible for people, especially, you know, active duty like this. On a military base, you know, I've never been somewhere where it's been such a problem.
Yeah, you'd think that the military bases, military hospitals would have the best medical care. And I think that that's what the American people think.
They want to believe that.
They want to believe this utopian view, you know, that it's this perfect situation on these military bases and that they get the best care. And it's exactly the opposite. And I've been telling people, if you really want to get the care that you need, I recommend you use your TRICARE card and go across the lane over here to the civilian hospital, because you're more likely to get better care.
That's a fact.
And the thing is, when he is went to see for his mental health, everybody there knows what he's going for because it's isolated off. So when he goes for his appointments, he goes one way, everybody knows that's mental health. The other way is other stuff. So he doesn't even have that privacy. So they've asked him, why are you so open about it? He says, and he'll tell you, I have nothing to hide because it's all out in the open anyways, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And to back up a little bit here, he went to Annapolis in August. His first Thanksgiving there, which you're only talking 4 months later, he was at Walter Reed in the mental ward there.
Oh, wow.
Because of suicide tendencies.
What do you think that it is that causes those tendencies? Do you know what, you don't have to say it, but do you know internally like what it is? And
so for me, it's the building stress and the trap feeling. And it's part of the reason why I okayed it for them to start going through like the med board process and the C&D process, because it was getting to the point where like I was feeling like my job was all of who I was, that I was just getting stressed out. I was, you know, you want to put out the best care for your patients. You want to make sure that they're doing well and stuff. You know, and no
you
recognition.
didn't feel like you were, you don't feel like you were doing that? Do you feel like
it felt like basically the more I got done, the more that got piled on, kind of thing. It was just a never ending.
No respect.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like being the janitor, and like, you know, some snot-nosed kid comes over and kicks over your garbage bag and you got to clean it back up.
Uh-huh. But well, your mom mentioned that you'd mentioned before, Terry, that he had been called names and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that the same situation, or? So
I did, there was, this was the chief that didn't like me. He pulled me into a room. He basically, he was mad over something that was already discussed the day prior with other leadership. I guess they didn't relay it to him, and he was upset that I did what my other leadership instructed me to do. He pulled me into a room. He started calling me names, calling me, you know, dumbass, fat fuck, you know, just like all these sorts of things and stuff, and just screaming at me to basically scream at me. There's nothing like constructive about it. It's just this happened, I would say, my second or third month here.
And you would say it was out of control?
Yeah, he was just going at me and stuff. He pulled me into his office, and you know, it wasn't over until he was done talking, kind of thing.
And you couldn't say anything, could you?
No.
It happened to Brandon too. Brandon was spit on during his little berating.
Yeah.
Hopefully you were not, but sometimes they get so mad that they inadvertently start spitting, but that's uncalled for, especially since it was addressed the day before. It's not your fault that he wasn't informed.
Yes, and it's just very frustrating, and like you'll see people that just blatantly get away with things like this same chief. The reason why he I found out later down the line, because I was kind of confused because I had heard he was working for another department. The reason why he got transferred over to my department was because someone had opened a I believe it was a sexual harassment case. I can't 100% say for sure, but it was one of those things where it's awfully funny. He got moved after there was these you know, I would say rumors of this case being opened up against him, and he gets moved from the department that he was currently working in to a completely different department and stuff. So he already had issues and stuff, and obviously this guy's still in the Navy. He's still where he is, and he's continuing his career, and the Navy's just like, oh, whatever. Like,
he's not over you no more.
No, he's over some other poor person.
How sad. But that's what they do. They move them. They get in trouble, they move them.
Yep. And you know, like blatantly, like the tops just get away with stuff. And I've seen it, like even like when I was fresh out of boot camp and stuff, there was like people are talking, they're like, oh, did you hear? And I'm like, what? The CO of boot camp, that when I went there, supposedly, I'm not sure 100%. I would have to actually look it up and see if it was true. But you know, there's just rumors flying around that he had like 2 or 3 DUIs. A CO of the only naval recruit training base.
God bless America.
Even just rumors of something like that, you would think that would at least be addressed or something, but nothing. And as far as I know, they went on and stuff, you know, even like the MCPONs and stuff, you know, our last 2 MCPONs have been accused of treating their staff horribly. Like, you know, you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is
Incredible.
And we're hearing it from our side, you know, after you talk to families like Terry Caserta here, and find out how Brandon was treated, and many others. And now we're hearing it firsthand from somebody who experiences it, walked through it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. They cover the stuff up afterwards. They do a bunch of damage control with these you know, I wouldn't say they're all rumors, because some of them are definitely true. You know, for instance, you know, not too long ago, I visited a friend who was actually stationed in the department and on the same ship that Brandon was and stuff. He didn't know that I knew about the story and stuff, what had actually happened. But he had just gotten to the ship. He's an EM, and you know, he was talking and he's like, yeah, someone in my shop was saying something about you know, he saw some kid, you know, fall into like a tail rotor blade or something, you know, making it seem like it was an accident. Like it wasn't what it actually was, command abuse that led to just someone just being fed up and stuff. You know, they twist it just enough to where they don't seem like they're such the bad guys and stuff. It's just that tiny little tweak
to bamboozle the masses of sailors out there.
Yeah.
We did hear that they were telling everybody that Brandon's death was a complete accident. If he said he fell into the tail rotor, how
How's that happen?
The tail rotor is, let's see, Brandon was 5'8".
Like up there.
So
He had to
Mhm.
jump to get it. He had
the,
to jump twice.
the tail rotor, is that close to the ground? I don't think so.
Nope.
But I know we heard there's a sailor that reached out to us from another ship that is now in Bahrain, and Bros is on that ship, and she's the one that said that she had heard it was an accident, but that the whole crew is making his life a living hell, which I don't care. I'm glad, but anyway.
Good.
But yeah, they move them. Or they ignore them and let them continue. Because if you're looking at, if you look at the George Washington, they have not relieved that CO, and they have lost. Well, now it's anywhere between 8 and 12 in an 8-month period, and more than half of those are suicides.
Yes.
Yep.
They all are, I'm pretty sure. But a few of them are still under investigation. But he hasn't been relieved. They don't hold anybody accountable. And I can't imagine how many people, the 3 of you who do your job can handle 1,200 people in 2 days. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
That doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying, I mean, I know you're telling the truth, because you are not the first one that I have heard.
If he's doing lab tests and they're understaffed there, think about where else they're understaffed.
Exactly.
And
like Terry said, there's other places that are overmanned. Why don't they send some of those people TAD, temporary assigned, I think, duty, to help out with you guys until you get someone else? Why don't they do that? Because it costs money. It takes away from one pot and puts it into another. They can't use the excess for something else. That's why. It all comes down to money. And you guys are, when they lose you, no matter how they lose you, it's the cost of doing business.
Yes.
Yep. And it's gotten to the points where I've reached my breaking point a couple of times. I've been I lashed out at an NCO. He was getting on to us because I don't remember exactly what it was, but something relatively small. It was basically I believe it was filing something wasn't done, and he was mad about it. He's like, why haven't you and so done this? And I just blew up on him. I'm like, this is ridiculous. How can you expect us to do this job when there's only the 2 of us working on the floor here? And and you already know I'm dealing with stuff. I was so frustrated and stuff. And I've had self-harming behaviors with cutting, that I got so mad that I lifted up my sleeve, and I was like, the Navy doesn't care. For the Navy, it's cheaper for them if I get a shotgun shell. And now I wasn't saying that meaning to that I was going to go out and do it, but I was saying that from a perspective, our life insurance does not cover suicide. That is actually one of the breaking things with it.
Actually, it does.
Oh, it does.
Mm.
Yeah, they tell us something completely different.
I know they do.
well, and they decide who they award that to, because I do know families that have had their service members, or they say they take their own life and they don't get a dime. And it's not because it was awarded to somebody else.
Right. And they're supposed to get it. I mean, we didn't know that we would get it. and we got it. And, you know, maybe it was the circumstance, I don't know, but they do award it. But that doesn't give you permission.
Yeah, yeah. You know, after that, basically the NCO was just dumbfounded, and he went and talked to a senior NCO, and you know, after with me making that comment, you know, I understand why they did it, but they sent me to go get a psych eval done. I was released same day from the hospital, but you know, still like nothing's changing. Not like the workload's staying the same. We're not getting more people. Nothing's really happening and stuff. It's just
You've been hospitalized twice, or is it 3 times?
I've only been hospitalized the one time, but I had been sent to the ER a total of 3 times.
Have you shared with them, like, I mean, like, why you know, that it's affecting your health, your mental health, that the amount of people that you're having, like, that you're understaffed? I mean, I guess you have. I mean, you mentioned that you, like, even some of your leadership had brought it up.
Yeah,
right?
so it's even a topic of like most of my like therapy sessions and stuff. And you know, I've even been seen by like civilian psychologists, because a couple of times I went to a civilian hospital to get checked out. And when I tell them about what's going on, they're like, their reaction is just odd. They're like, that's deplorable conditions to be dealing with and stuff, with especially with like working in healthcare. And
Well, also keep in mind though, with him doing the lab tech work, there he's also doing their hazardous waste and doing the inventory and making sure all the supplies are in the supply part of it too. And isn't there something else you do?
yeah, so I do the supply for the laboratory, and I do the biohazardous waste. I'm one of only a handful of people in the clinic that are qualified to handle the biohazardous waste. So I have to deal with that stuff. I have to deal with that packaging.
Yeah, 1 out of the 4 of you.
Yeah.
You're the one trained, of course.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and everybody's that way. They all carry extra jobs on top of what they're already doing, and then they can't figure out why they're all stressed out.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So you've been to inpatient, correct?
Yes.
And you've been to the ER, you said 3 times.
Yes.
Knowing this, has your chain of command, their attitude, has it changed at all?
No, even with the change in people and stuff, nothing's really happened. They started my providers for my mental health side. They started what's called a C&D, process condition not amounting to disability, claiming it basically under adjustment disorder. It took forever. We had to get a senator involved with it, and in order for the process to go, that continued on for over 6 months. That process is only supposed to take maybe a month or 2, because they would do something and then they would just let it sit, and they would hope that we would just forget about it and stuff. And
It's been over a year now trying to get it all done.
Yeah, and then it finally got all the way to the top where it hit Navy Medicine East, and they denied it, and they said this doesn't amount to a condition not amounting to disability, because you clearly have in this chart that this person has major depressive disorder, which is a rateable condition by the VA. So it got kicked back basically to ground zero into a different process called medical board. So I had to go through all the VA stuff. I'm having to go through all the DOD stuff. And they still haven't come to a decision on what they're going to do with me. I don't know if they're going to give me disability, if they're going to discharge me. I have no clue what they're doing with me and stuff. I've been living month to month for a year and stuff, whether or not I'll have a job. And, that, I think just that alone, not to know what you're going to be doing in the next month or so would drive someone just bonkers.
But to back up here just a little bit too, keep in mind, the doctors have put him on restrictions. Well, for whatever reason, restrictions never made it to command or what, we don't know where that translation fell, but the restrictions are not being done. He's been, the one thing we do know is he's unfit for duty. He's been declared that, and they told him that, but everything else is still in limbo and everything. And with going through this, he doesn't have an actual JAG lawyer. It's a paralegal that's handling everything.
Usually what happens. Okay, so you are unfit for duty and you're still working. You're not on limb due, which is light, limited duty. You're not on that.
Nope.
I guess you could go back to your doctor, the one that put you on limited duty, and ask him or her to give you a copy of those restrictions so that you can give them to your command, or you can have him or her resubmit them to your command. Now, if it was me, I'd hand deliver it myself. That's what I would do. As far as your medical board, first of all, I am shocked that that is not what they did the first time.
Yes.
That is what they should have done the first time, is the med board. Now, I think you've already been through TAPS.
Yes, so I've already done TAPS. They did it on the off chance that the C&D went through.
Okay, so now basically you're waiting for the rating, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so a med board is better than the first one. And I'm glad they kicked it back. I'm surprised they kicked it back because they could have just let you go with nothing. So they had somebody working for you there. So you'll get a rating, obviously, and it'll be a disability that should be permanent. So even if it's 50 or 70%, you will be getting that check every month for whatever percentage of your pay, hopefully for the rest of your life, unless they have you come in for routine to make sure that you're still where you're at. They can take it away after so many years, but what you need to do when you get out is first you need to make sure that you have your entire medical file from the day you enlisted. And I would go until the day you get out. When you leave, you make sure you have everything in your hand. The reason, because when you get out, you can up your VA disability. You can file a claim to up it, so that if they only give you, we'll say 40%, you resubmit your claim, and hopefully it can come back 70 or 80%. That's what you're aiming for. I don't know if you'll ever get 100%, but that 100% is what you're really wanting. But sorry, I kind of went off topic here. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand what you need so you can,
What your rights are.
help yourself. And the JAG, yes, they have a lot of paralegals. And I don't know how many, it really depends on how many JAG lawyers are on your base. You can request one, but the chances of you getting one now are slim to none.
Yeah.
But when you find out that your med board paperwork, you read it, you make sure you agree with it. If there's anything on that paperwork that you do not agree with, do not sign it. Because if you sign it, you're stuck.
Yep.
I'm sure you know all that, but
Oh yeah, we've so we've gotten to, me and my mother, we've gotten to a point where we don't have no trust with them, because that we've had them try to tell conflicting accounts to the senator's office, and I've literally had the paperwork in my hand, sent it to my mom, she sent it to the office and stuff, and basically prove it. Like they originally tried to tell them, oh, it hasn't been 6 months since this whole process started. And I was like, huh, that's weird, because this time-stamped CAT card signature says, July of 21 and stuff. Showed that to them, and they're like, huh, that's kind of weird. They're lying to us, very obviously.
Yeah, because they made it sound like it hadn't even been a month yet, that we were pushing the envelope too soon. And I
well,
said, oh no.
I can tell you, I have talked to families of active duty service members who have been waiting for a med board for 15 months. Just to let you know, they were told that that is standard. And the reason they're getting or giving is because at the time they were letting go all of the people who refused the vaccine. So they wanted to get them out first because they are not compliant, apparently, and the people on med board are. Now that they've reversed that, so they're letting those people stay in who refuse the vaccine, I'm hoping the system will work itself out to where it won't take that long. But I know one family who's been waiting for 2 years, just to let you know, but and the vaccine was the reason. They're just letting too many people out that weren't getting the vaccine. So that could be the reason. I'm just throwing that out there from what I have heard and what I have learned, if that makes any sense.
And the bad thing is mental health is suffering during this time frame because he's not proper diagnosed. We know that he's not being proper diagnosed because he's active duty. They can't give him the proper diagnosis. So in turn, he cannot get the proper medication. They've told him that, the doctors have.
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's like, so it's the doctors. I've talked to some of the providers and stuff that work in mental health, like the psychiatrist and the psychologist and stuff. And the way they word things, they have to be very particular with how they word it because of duty limitations. And, there's certain medications that they can't just give someone because, it could have, adverse effects that affects like the work productivity and stuff. For example, like if a person needed a hard antipsychotic, like let's say lithium or something, that would make it almost impractical for them to be able to work in the military just because of the high speed op tempo of it. And but so they wind up erring on the side of caution with it rather than calling it how I would say a civilian provider would,
bipolar
a civilian
or something like that.
Yeah. So a lot of people get hit. Like I originally was diagnosed with adjustment disorder. Then it got changed to adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depression. Then it was dysthymia. So, and they switched it to major depressive disorder. So my diagnosis has changed like 4 times in just the past few months. And they didn't, and it's became basically like, how can I say? It's showing an increase in symptom severity with the diagnosis too. So
Exactly.
they're working at the bottom, trying the lowest level possible to call it, and going up.
That is what they do. That right there is what they do. When your med board started, what were you? Okay, so you said it was the adjustment disorder, and that's why it was kicked back because they called it something else, correct?
So they had, when they started the condition on amounting to disability, it was adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depression. Well, another provider had put in their own diagnosis of dysthymia, which is a rated disability. They saw that, they kicked it from the ADCEP to the medical board because of dysthymia. They decided dysthymia was not, because my symptoms started to get worse, was not matching what they were seeing. So they decided to change the diagnosis again to the major depressive disorder, which is a condition that absolutely has to be a medical board and can't be a C&D.
And that's good. That is good. That's why you're going to get a disability rating.
Yep.
So is there anything else that you want to say that happened to you or that they did to you, like your command or something? I know you spoke a lot about things that have happened to you. Is there anything that maybe you forgot, or Terry, if there's something that you think he forgot? I know there was a lot said.
Yeah, there's been a lot said. The only other thing that I know he kind of wanted to touch on too, that he had mentioned to me, is when you fall into the mental health issues and everything, there's things that he probably never would have did if he did not get into that state of mind. And it starts in with the addictions and that of the drinking, the heavily drinking. At times he does that at times, just so he don't have to feel no more, is what he's told me. Bad thing is there's alcoholism on both sides of the family. He watched his aunt that was a very bad alcoholic, and he swore up and down that he would never, he wasn't going to be like that or anything like that. But because of the depression, it has kind of pushed him to that. That he probably never would have really smoked because he was dead set on his mom and dad smoking when we used to smoke. And at times he smokes or he vapes and everything. And, then he's got, because he can't sleep, and that, so he depends at times on the Benadryl or the ZQL or the stuff like that to try to be able to sleep, because they can't give him anything to sleep because of being active duty. Then, because when he does get to be able to sleep, then the addiction comes with the energy drinks, because then he has to pump himself up to stay awake. And then anybody that has dealt with any type of depression or anything like this, then it causes the problems with weight, because then you're wanting just this, when you have free time, it's just you want to sleep when you can, and you just want to eat in most cases.
Right.
So, it's not dealing with just the mental health part of it, it's the addictions that come with it too. And unfortunately, and that starts why they're still active duty. And unfortunately, at times carries on out after they're out. And then, then you're seeing them, the veterans on that are homeless because they have the addictions and that. I mean, and it can lead to the drug addictions too. I mean, thank God he hasn't done that part of it yet. And I hope he doesn't give him an excuse to. And that, but it makes it hard.
These are our young kids who are just learning how to be, in themselves, and here they are having to be pushed through, a siphon to the other side of whatever, agenda that the military has, being the mission at the moment,
Right.
Whatever the mission is, is their mission to me seems pretty backward. To me, it talks about the welfare of our service members, in many different creeds across different branches. It talks about the welfare of our service members, and that being the most important thing. And what I see is, you know, a kid getting drugged through quite a dynamic mess. Think about COVID and everything. I mean, you're trying to stay healthy yourself and there's no backup, none. And all these people everywhere and absolutely no backup for you. And so what I want to know is like, what are you doing right now to take care of yourself? You know, are you able to work out or, you know, do something that would help? Because I know just from my own standpoint with depression, anxiety and PTSD, like working out for me is, you know, you talk about addiction, you know, it kind of replaces those addictions for me. As long as I can make it happen, you know.
Mhm.
I got to put my, you know, my boots on the ground. So what is it that you're doing for yourself?
So it's a lot of it's just I try to find, you know, new activities, you know, something I'll try to like get fixated on something like, you know, like I've learned how to ride a motorcycle, or I'll pick up like a new language or something like that. Something I can fixate on, you know, it's just for like a month or two, or even just a couple of weeks or so. Just to focus on that and to not focus so much on everything else. That's how I've been kind of getting by. Then just trying to stay steady with like my therapy and stuff like that, and my doctor's appointments, because you know, it's just like as we're like I was seeing at some points almost like bi-weekly.
Have you ever had depression or anxiety like this before in your life, or is this just like
Brand new.
so shocking and new to you?
So it's new. I like with my like background and stuff, and just family history, I'm already like predisposed to it, but I never had actual problems until I joined the military, and I just started getting tossed into these stressful situations.
Mm-hmm.
With no support.
And it doesn't seem like a lot of sleep, maybe.
Yeah.
Time for yourself to recharge.
Do you work nights too?
So we have a rotating shift. We have an AM and a PM shift. The AM shift is a 7:30 to 1600, and the PM shift is a 10 to 1800. Now, your hours can vary. If you're on the AM shift, you may stay till 5 or 6, depending upon what's going on. If you're PM shift, you know, you might stay till 19, 2000 at night, because, you know, samples may have gotten dropped off super late and you have to run them. There's not a whole lot of real consistency with your schedule and stuff. There's not like a hard, like, we are done at this time, we start at this time.
So have
You stay until you're allowed to leave, basically.
Essentially, yes.
So have you ever worked days and then been told to work that next night?
Yes. So it's been we've even had to work like, you know, like when I-Day comes around, it was last week for us. We worked, me and the whole lab worked 16-hour days.
Wow.
For both Thursday and Wednesday of last week, on top of the 9 and 10-hour days preceding ordering the patients and getting everything prepared. So we were already tired from doing that stuff and setting up. And then on top of that, I went and I had to work on the weekend too, because it was my turn to do duty. So I worked a full day on Saturday, worked 3 hours on the Sunday, and I worked another full day on Monday, the 4th of July, even though it was a federal holiday. And I've been working this week on the late shift, and today's my first day off that I've had. in about a week and a half or so
Wow.
and stuff. And I'm on duty again this weekend, so I'm going to work this weekend too, and all of next week.
And you came on to talk to us today. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Wow. What a mess. That's a mess. Is there anything else you guys need to say?
Not that I can think of.
I think you've covered pretty much everything for the most
Yeah.
part. I mean, there's other stories that he could tell you guys about that you probably know some of anyways, and then some others and everything. I mean, it's just one of those things, you know, just different things that he witnessed with other people and stuff.
No, we can always have you guys back on. We have no problem with that. It was enjoyable listening to, well, I mean, it was, I don't want to say enjoyable, but it was nice to hear from an active duty service member, because you're enduring it right now. And I think, yes. I don't believe the civilians realize what our service members go through on a day in and day out. I really don't believe that. And yes, me and Heather can talk all day long about it, but without hearing it from an actual active duty service member, it just goes one ear and out the other. I'm sure it does.
And Terry, I want to commend you for, you know, being the mom, you know, that you need to be for this young man. I mean, I didn't want to be the helicopter mom. You know, you go like, well, should I bother him? You know, and then, you know, but I encourage our moms to be that helicopter mom. Who else is looking out for your service member but you? Nobody.
That's
But
it.
you. And
And
so
that's
I appreciate you being here tonight.
And that's like I tell him, I don't mind the texting and that, but that's fine for a couple days. But then we do Messenger a lot, Facebook Messenger. I need to see you. Anybody can pick up your phone and anybody can text me.
Stay
I
in
want
contact.
to see you. Yes. If he was overseas, Nate, I know it'd be a total different story, and I get that part of it. But he's here. We're able to do it.
And if I could do it all over again, I would definitely be a helicopter mom.
Well,
and he knows I do it because I love. And it's funny because when we went to the recruiters for it, and they kept teasing him. He says, "Yeah, you're a mama's boy. You're a mama's boy." And I'm thinking, oh, and I just thought about that tonight, and I'm thinking, now he really is being a mama's boy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just what I really hope and stuff for like any service members watching it is that what I want them to take away is that, you know, if you feel that you're not being treated right, chances are you're probably not being treated right, and that it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to go and get that help that you need. You know, I've seen it too many times where, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, the real bad cases, you know, it may be suicide, but, you know, some cases it may be the person is just miserable, or the person, you know, falls into debt, or they develop alcoholism or a drug addiction, or, you know, their family falls apart. I've seen it happen too many times to too many people, and they're not bad people. It's just they're in a bad situation and they were afraid to speak out about it and try to get help.
Very well said. Very well said. Okay, well, I guess we can close out, huh?
Yeah.
So we do want to thank you guys for being part of today's podcast. We appreciate the time that you spent with Heather and I, and bringing light to a horrible situation that you, Christian, and many of our service members go through. You know, I do have to say the suicide statistics in our military are horrible. So far this year, and that's the first quarter, that's 3 months, a total so far of 70 active duty service members have taken their life in the last 3 months. The Army saw 36. The Navy had 11, and that's not counting the George Washington, who saw 3 in 1 week in April. The Marines had 8, and the Air Force had 15. That's a lot for the Air Force.
Yep.
The reserves and the National Guard, they had a total of 38. So that's a total of 108 active duty service members, which equates to 36 for each month, January, February, and March. That means that the way it's looking, we are going to have 3 active duty service members take their life every day this year. We already have 22 veterans die by suicide. And we really, in active duty, we could see way more than 3 a day. Getting really bad. Heather, did you have a last statement you wanted to say?
Well, I just want to say that Locked and Loaded Diaries sees your suffering, and we just can't look away. We're here to help tell your story, you know, and if we wanted to say as well, if there's any active duty members that would like to tell their stories, we'd like for you to please contact us at lockedandloadeddiaries@gmail.com. And just another side note to our listeners, if you're asking yourself, you know, what can I do to help? Well, here's how you can help. We want you to go to the description below our podcast here, where we have a petition, a link for a petition asking for a congressional hearing for mothers of the fallen to be able to speak before Congress in order to enlighten them and, you know, the rest of our America on the staggering numbers of military injustices that we continue to see. And, you know, as always, thank you, Locked and Loaded Diary listeners, for your ear. And please make sure to check on someone that you love today. It could save a life. God bless America.
And liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Love you guys.
Love you too.